It's Christmas week. Oh. All right. Like, I know that that's not like your excitement about the Lord. I know that's your not excitement about everything else that's happening. Who here has wrapped their gifts already? Who here still has shopping to do? Who here is thanking God for Amazon Prime? Yes. I told my wife this last week, don't you dare open any boxes that come in the mail at all, period. Yes, she did. That's right. So anyway, we're in the process of finalizing details and things for our Christmas. And so we know that as the kids were singing this morning, we know that Christmas is Christ's birthday. Now I know that there's like some I wouldn't say arguing, but there's different theories and thoughts on whether or not Jesus was actually born in December and all that stuff. Probably not. But I know this is when we celebrate it. So, it doesn't matter necessarily the date or the time, but we celebrate Jesus' birth on December the 25th. And I know that we live in a society and a culture that has done it as far as materialism, as far as, trying to push on us this, have to buy, have to gain. And so we can find ourselves overwhelmed by that. So, but for the case of this morning, I want to talk to you guys about love. And I want to talk to you about the love that changes the world. Now, we know that love changes things. We know that love changes families. We know that love changes churches. We know that love can change communities. Love is this powerful thing. And I know that secularly speaking, love is pretty significant, but I have noticed that we have attached love to other things. For example, I love tacos, right? And I kid you not, my affection continues to grow for tacos. It just does, all right? I love my wife's cooking. Thankfully, the exponential growth of that love has not taken place in my love handles, as some people call them. Or, I don't know if muffin tops is an okay thing to say from the pulpit. And I already said it. Anyway, how many of you guys are Christmas movie fans? You guys Christmas movies? Okay. All right, so I have decided, and it hasn't happened in a huge amount of things, but I've decided, I'm going to show my kids some of the most terrible, corny, awful movies that were created back in the 90s and early 2000s. These are some cool things. How many of you guys have seen the movie, I'm asking you guys to raise your hands a lot. How many of you guys have seen the movie, I think it's I'll Be Home for Christmas with Jonathan Taylor Thomas? You guys remember that cool guy? The guy who played Simba's voice in The Lion King, the old Lion King. No, yes, no. Home Improvement kid, you're a really cute guy who kind of fell off the map until Last Man Standing, and that he was on that. Anyway, so I'm showing them all the corny movies. How many, some of us, we have watched as the Hallmark presence of movies, it's just increased a lot. There's just Hallmark movie upon Hallmark movie upon Hallmark movie about love. And if you'll find, some of them are kind of the same in some ways. All right? Here's a couple, whoa, there's a lot of murmur out here. All right, here's a couple thoughts. I don't mean to, insult you or anything. But anyway, here's a couple thoughts, okay? Hallmark movies. A title is almost always a pun, all right? The leading lady is career-oriented. A lot of the time, she's also a baker, all right? There's inspiration from a royal wedding, all right? The lead actors are in Christmas at the palace. A family land is at stake sometimes. A knight in shining armor comes to the rescue. Most scenes are set in a twinkly music. All right, every character has the same interior designer. You ever notice that? All right. A small town goes all out for Christmas. Family sets up holiday displays. All right. Someone lacks Christmas spirit. I've watched also have you ever? And I know that this is true in real life, but have you ever noticed that in these kind of Christmas movies, men are just stupid, just dumb. Dumb. Okay, that does not happen in every instance. Because I know, without a shadow of a doubt, that I am perfect. That's not funny, Grace. So, all right. So I mean, it could be Hallmark movies. It could be other movies. It could be something totally unrelated to Hallmark. I mean, like with the new streaming networks, we got Netflix and Hulu and all these different things where people are trying to like increase this like holiday spirit and this sense of magical Christmas time. And if I could say it this way, it could be movies at Christmas time, it could be movies year-round, but why do so many people immerse themselves in the genre of this genre of Christmas entertainment? We all want love. We all want to be loved. And we all want someone to love. We all want to be loved. Love is often the central point. Love is often the place where we find ourselves gravitating towards. Now, I know that some people in this world have been so hurt, they become so bitter, that they say, I don't ever want to let my guard down ever again because I don't ever want to experience love like that, okay? Or I don't want to experience love because it's too painful. But if you were to get down to it, if you were to get to the roots of that individual, they may not completely understand or know, but love is something that they crave. Something that they desire. The best love story is the one that led to the author of love. The best Christmas story, right? The best Christmas story is the one that is led by the author of love. The one that is led by the author of love. We know that that is the best Christmas story. That is the most amazing Christmas story. That we get to celebrate, that we have the privilege and opportunity to celebrate the birth of Jesus, because the birth of Jesus is the thing that changed everything. Is the thing that changed everything about our lives, about our existence. That is the love story of Christmas. And we should be captivated by it, not just at Christmas time, but all the time. We should be captivated by the birth of Christ. The story itself is just amazing when you think about it. When you think about the virgin birth, when you think about the Immaculate Conception, when you think about all the details, the angels that were present. When you think about the lowly shepherds, in that society, the shepherds were considered the least. They were the ones who were out, just out on the outskirts of town. They were not seen as special. They were not seen as privileged. They weren't seen as anyone of value. And they were the ones that the angels appeared to and said, hey, go be present. Go notice. Recognize that the Son of God has been born. The Son of God has been born. Perhaps one of my most favorite Christmas movies is It's a Wonderful Life. And okay. Whoa. Wow. All right. Now, I'll have to be honest with you in this, okay? I'll have to be honest with you in this. I, in recent years, have not sat down to watch it. My kids and wife will attest to it. Every time my wife brings it up, like, you want to watch A Wonderful Life? I'm like, no. And here, some of you guys will understand. It is an emotional investment to sit down and watch that movie. Like it could be a struggle. It could be difficult to sit down and watch It's a Wonderful Life. Like there is so much captured within that movie that just captivates me and changes the way that I see the world, changes the way that I see my life, changes the way that I know life is impacted. Perhaps one of my favorite, probably the favorite quote of George Bailey in that movie is his raw prayer. Is when he says, "Dear Father in heaven, I'm not a praying man, but if you're up there and you can hear me, show me the way. Show me the way. Show me the way." And I know that there are Christmas movies, there are entertainment that we engage in that provide for us glimpses of not the magic of Christmas, but the spirituality, the reality of it, that point us in the direction of a love that is far greater and grander than anything this world has to offer. Far greater. And we might find ourselves entertained. It's entertaining and fun holiday experience, but they're magical, but it's not that simple. It's not that simple. I mean, I know that George Bailey cries out and asks God to, to show him the way. And that's a significant, powerful thing. And I talk about love this morning, and I talk about the way that our culture sees love, the way that movie produces love. And I know that those are significant things that perhaps better our marriages even, or our relationships with our children. I mean, for heaven's sake, commercials come on television, and it makes us better parents. I know that sounds crazy, but it happens. It really does. I don't know about you, but I've watched something, a video, a small clip, and it changes the way, it opens my mind at times to a blind spot, and it's made me think, oh wow, I've got to do something about that. And it changes something about my life, and that's significant. But love is so much bigger, so much more powerful, so much more incredible than that. All right, I've got to share this because I was reading about It's a Wonderful Life. It's totally not related to this sermon, but I've got to share it. Did you know that It's a Wonderful Life was investigated by the FBI? Who knows that? Did you know that? Okay. Awesome. You knew that back then. I didn't know this, okay? So listen to this. This is great, okay? It's more complicated. I'm getting at this, okay? Not everyone was a big fan of the now beloved film. Just ask the FBI. In a 1947 FBI report revealed concerns about the movie and its connection to the communist infiltration of the motion picture industry. I told you it was more complicated. All right. The report stated with regard to the picture It's a Wonderful Life, all right, redacted though, it stated that in substance that the film represented rather obvious attempts to discredit bankers by casting Lionel Barrymore as a Scrooge type so that he would be the most hated man in the picture. This, according to these sources, is a common trick used by communists. Given that 1947 was the year of the Red Scare, I wasn't around for that, so, and I don't know if you guys were, but anyway, came to Hollywood. That isn't surprising that It's the Wonderful Life got caught up in the fray. Totally unrelated and random. But we know just from that, like things are more complicated than they appear. There are things that are under the layers of life, under the layers of our existence, under the layers of what we experience that make us begin to question what love really is. I mean, I know that I have an affection for tacos, but I'm not making it my second wife. Just not happening, okay? Just not happening. I know that we have affection for things. We have affection for our children. We have a grand love for our own spouses. But that love, even as big and powerful and amazing as it is not the love that God has for us. The love expressed within the birth of his son. The birth of his son. We have to really begin to recognize. Did you know, and I don't have time to go through them all at all, but did you know that the Greek language alone has 21 words for love? There's 21 words, each one signifying a different kind of love, a different connotation of one kind of love or another. I mean, it like amazes me. Now, I know that in our culture we have different words or different expressions or different ideas of love. Okay, we talk about the love for our children. We talk about the love for our family and friends. We talk about the love for our spouse, love for things. I know that love increases in its development and understanding as we live and exist, but I also know that we don't have necessarily 21 words to define the facets and the different ideas and the different concepts and the different truths about what love is. We just don't. But I do know that love as Christ is defined is big. Hamilton Wright, maybe, all right, he said it this way. Blessed is the season which engages the whole world in a conspiracy of love. Blessed is the season which engages the whole world in a conspiracy of love. And here's another thing that I want to mention to you guys. Our challenge is to cut through the endearing, magical nostalgia Christmas has become and be reminded of the wonder of the one who is Christmas. Now, I don't want to get like, off topic or I don't want to concern ourselves with, I don't want us to be scared that we can't experience Christmas that's fun. Little known fact, okay, I was reading about this. I told my wife about this the other day. Actually, last night, I was reading about this. Did you know that elves were originally a Sunday school classroom book experience? Like the elves that run around with Santa Claus? I said Santa Claus. Santa Claus? That was actually designed by a Sunday school class. I don't know the book. I wish I could, trace back and talk about, like figure out what it was. But like, not all things that are outside of our view of Christmas are evil. Not all things. They may be good, as a minister and author says it. They may be good, but they're not God, okay? It may be good, but it's not God. Like, there can be fun things that we can experience about Christmas. The Christmas trees and the Christmas lights and gifts, sometimes that, experiencing family and baking cookies and brownies and cookies and brownies. If you got extra, come see me. Have cookies and brownies, like pies. And she's amazing. Like, I cannot wait. Anyway, I can't. So can you bake some stuff this afternoon, Kelly? Oh, okay. All right. I mean, like Christmas can be fun. We can enjoy it. We can experience it. It can be delightful. But we've got to remember that in all of that nostalgia and all that magical experience, the endearing experiences of Christmas, whether tethered to movies and entertainment or tethered to family experiences which were a part of our, our family of origin, our history, our development as a child growing into adulthood, or the things that we've created our own, the traditions that we've made for ourselves. Those things can be fun and exciting. Those things can be magical. But if we're not careful, we can be captured by those things, and it can cause us to lose sight of the one, the individual, Christ who came to earth for us to be resurrected, to be saved, to be, eternally set free. If we're not careful, we can forget about those things. And I love the fact that we have ornamental things that define the Christmas story. I love that, right behind me is the nativity story, but you have to realize that this nativity story is actually a timeline, not a one moment event. If you look at it, the wise men came a while later, all right? And I know that it says there are three of them, but there were probably a lot more than three of them. It didn't happen this way. It happened differently. But we allow, it's like cool to have that tradition where we put together a nativity scene, and that nativity scene may have all the players involved, but you realize that it's a timeline or a sequence of events that have happened that all surround the birth of Jesus. And we can allow those things to be fun and enjoying, and we can endear, find these things endearing, but if we're not careful, they will distract. It's like crazy to me, but even spiritual things, even church things can distract us from the true meaning of Christmas. I want to read to you guys from Luke 2, 1 through 20, and this is in the Voice translation of the Bible. Just listen along with me, okay? Around the time of Elizabeth's amazing pregnancy and John's birth, the emperor of Rome, Caesar Augustus, this is terrible, required everyone in the Roman Empire to participate in a massive census. The first census since Quirinius and Quirinius had become governor of Syria. Each person had to go to his or her ancestral city to be counted. Can you imagine, like I was sharing last week, being a pregnant woman riding on a donkey or mule or walking, for that fact, as long as they walked? And this political background isn't just an innocent, it is crucial incident. It's crucial to the story. All right, so verses 4 and 5, Mary's fiancé, Joseph, from Nazareth in Galilee, had to participate in this census in the same way everyone else did. Because he was a descendant of King David, his ancestral city was Bethlehem, David's birthplace. Mary, who was now late in her pregnancy, that the messenger Gabriel had predicted accompanied Joseph. While in Bethlehem, she went into labor and gave birth to her firstborn son. She wrapped the baby in a blanket and laid him in a feeding trough, or a manger as we call it, because the inn had no room for them. Verse 8, nearby in the fields outside of Bethlehem, a group of shepherds were guarding their flocks from predators in the darkness of night. Suddenly a messenger of the Lord stood in front of them, and the darkness was replaced by a glorious light, the shining light of God's glory. And they were terrified. And this is what the messenger said. He said, "Don't be afraid. Listen, I bring good news, news of great joy, news that will affect all people everywhere. Not just in their time, but for that time forward. Historically speaking, and today, in the city of David, a liberator has been born to you, or for you. He is the promised anointed one, the supreme authority. You will know you have found him when you see a baby wrapped in a blanket lying in a feeding trough." At that moment, the first heavenly messenger was joined by thousands of other messengers, a vast heavenly choir. They praised God. I'm sure that the harmonies in that choir were just, I like when I think of the pitch of that music, I can't wrap my mind around it. I just know that I can't wait to hear it in eternity. And so this heavenly choir began to sing. And as soon as the heavenly messengers disappeared into heaven, the shepherds were buzzing with conversation. This is what they said to themselves. "Let's rush down to Bethlehem right now. Let's see what's happening. Let's experience what the Lord has told us about." And so they ran into town. And eventually they found Mary and Joseph and the baby lying in a feeding trough. After they saw the baby, they spread the story of what they had experienced and what had been said to them about this child. Everyone who heard their story couldn't stop thinking about its meaning. Mary, too, she pondered all of these events, treasuring each in memory in her heart. I'm sure that she would carry them her entire lifetime. And the shepherds returned to their flocks, praising God for all they had seen and heard, and they glorified God for the way the experience had unfolded, just as the heavenly messenger had predicted. I'm sure alone, they're like, okay, we got to go to Bethlehem. We got to find this baby, okay? Now, the details are pretty explicit. They're not to go to inns. They're not to go to relatives' houses. They're not to search for, them as residents in a normal, place to habitate. They were to look for Jesus in a feeding trough. I'm sure that they probably looked a little ridiculous. All these shepherds running around, where's your barn or whatever it was? Where's that hole in the cave where you keep the animals and the hay? Where's it at? And they're like, why? We're looking for a baby. What? What kind of baby? You looking for a donkey baby? You looking for a sheep baby? What kind of baby? No, we're talking about a human baby. What kind of person and how inhumane would they be to have a baby in a place like that? You don't understand. Heavenly messengers. And then they sang and it was amazing. And now we're here and we're trying to find him. We just got to, and then they discover him. You're like, whoa, this is real. The angels told us that he would be in a feeding trough, but he's really in a feeding trough. That's crazy that he's in a feeding trough. And they're amazed and they're in wonder. They're awed by this event. They're awed by what has happened. But if you look at the story itself and you look at the conversation that has happened, we know that Mary has been told. We know that Joseph has been told. It's in the story itself. We know that Elizabeth, as we shared about the first week, Elizabeth had become pregnant in her old age, her and her husband's old age. We know that he would be John the Baptist, who would be the forerunner, the one who would come before Jesus and announce Jesus for people. We know that. We know that the angel spoke to Mary and said, "Calm down, be settled. This child is going to be an immaculate conception. You're going to give birth as a virgin. As crazy as that sounds, she was thankful that she was being used as God's servant. And when Joseph thought about leaving her quietly, an angel appeared to him and said, hold on. Hold on. But it's beautiful to me how these angels used this term. And I know that this is in the Voice translation, but the angels say this. All right? It's beautiful because the darkness was replaced by glorious light. But they said this. They said, don't be afraid. Listen. We got good news. News of great joy. News that will affect all people everywhere. Today, in the city of David, a liberator has been born to you. The promised anointed one of supreme authority. Can you imagine, okay? I know that, different translations find different ways to describe the text, and I know that I try my best to look at all different translations to understand more specifically what the scripture is saying. I love the way that the Voice words it here. Your liberator is here. Your liberator is here. Now, can you imagine all of the things that they're thinking about? And I know that we live in a different society and culture, but if you look in their society and culture, you will notice that they were under oppression from the Romans. I mean, when people talked about the Messiah, they thought he was going to be this big guy on a horse, wielding a mighty sword, creating a huge army, and decimating Rome and their authority and their oppression of those people. And they're like, your liberator is here. Your liberator is here. Can you imagine for just a second those words? You see, God's heart is that we know and experience the vastness of his love, both in its magnitude and in its complexity. Getting it in real simple terms here, though, if you take into consideration this text. Because when the angels arrived, the dark that was all around them, it's significant, was suddenly gone. Darkness, it fled. Light infinitely pierced the dark when our liberator was born. That's love. Light infinitely pierced the dark when our liberator was born. We are a mess. They were a mess. We exist in darkness. They exist in darkness. You don't think you exist in darkness? Take a look at the world around you. I don't want to depress you or overwhelm you or make you feel saddened. But if you look at society, if you step out of our own country and begin to look at the things that are happening on the outside of our country and in other countries, those are being killed. Those who are being taken. Young girls and boys who are being snatched off streets and sold to the highest bidder. That's the darkness that I'm talking about. And Jesus comes into this darkness. He comes into our brokenness. In his love, in God's love, he says, okay, this is going to be messy, physically and spiritually. This is going to be messy. From the blood that was present at his birth to the blood that was present at his death. That was going to be messy. But my liberator is coming. The one who would liberate us from more than just the oppression of a legal system, more than the oppression of a giant and massive Roman oppression, the liberator that would liberate us from ourselves, our sinfulness, our brokenness, our evil, the very deception that exists within us. That liberator is the one that I'm talking about. And I have been in places where I felt that life could not be any more dark, any more lonely, any more broken. And just like that, I can remember at times the one who came to rescue me. You see, love came down at Christmas. Love all lovely. Love divine. Love was born at Christmas. A star and angels gave the sign, right? The birth of Jesus is not the way we would have planned it. That's love. No person, however poor, should have been born in a stable. That's love. No delivery room, no doctor hay on the floor, animals all around. Can you imagine just for a minute the smell, the mess? It's no place for a royal birth, but that's love. God sees things differently. You see, he chose a mansion over he chose a manger over a mansion. That's love. He picked a carpenter over a king. That's love. He designed a quiet coming over a worldwide celebration. That's love. Why would God, the creator of heaven and earth, send his son to be born in such a lowly place? That's love. Because when we realize that he came into the lowly places, we know that he exists in our lowly places. That's love. Perhaps Jesus, the only Son of God, the one who was born in a stable to give hope to all those who live like one. We sure do make a mess of things. That's love, though. Sometimes our actions stink. Sometimes we arrive in places that we never thought we would. We arrive in situations that are horrible, deplorable. But he comes to us. That's love. God knows. God knows. He sent a Savior. That's love. Want to know God's answer to our deepest longings? The deepest longings of our life? A familiar text, one we read often, John 3:16. We see it, the football players put it on their, the thing that they put under their eye. Forgive me, I can't remember it. We see it on, we see it tattooed on people. We see it on T-shirts. We see it everywhere. John 3:16, a familiar text. Here's what it says in the Passion Translation. I love it. It says, "For this is how much God loved the world. He gave his one and only unique Son as a gift." As a gift. So now everyone who believes in him will never perish, but experience everlasting life. That is love. Yes, I thrill in the whole experience of Christmas, the whole experience of this birth of Jesus. But I know that he would become a messenger with a message that would cost him his life, and costing him his life gave us life. It was a gift. His unique Son, his special Son, his perfect Son. As much as it is challenging to wrap my mind around that truth, the perfect Son of God would become our freedom. And here we find an answer in the most unexpected place. We look and long for heaven, but we don't see it in a barn-born baby. He's the Holy One sleeping in the hay, maybe even squawking and crying and screaming. Probably just messed his pants or whatever they used then. I don't know. My son was like, I can't remember. Was it Joseph that was talking? Who was talking about it? It was Joseph, because he's seen diapers in modern times. And he's like, they use cloth? Ew. Right? Some of you in here have done that, right? You rinsed it out and, rinsed it out again, and I don't know. Anyway, but it just gives an indication, though. You think of that kind of mess that a child would make, that Jesus would be born in such a vulnerable way. Such a vulnerable way. He listens to us and tells us no mess will turn me away from you. No smell will cause me to run from you. That he loves us that much. That he was born to live in the lives like ours. He knows exactly what you're like. He knows exactly what you're experiencing, exactly what you're facing. That's love. Again, reiterating this statement as we close today. Light infinitely pierced the dark when our liberator was born. And some of us need a liberator today. Some of us, man, our life is great. Things are wonderful. Things are going really, really, really good. We're just happy. We don't realize at times that even in our most happy, delightful, wonderful of experiences, we need liberation. We need it. You know, that one missing piece, that one missing spot, that one lonely place, that maybe you've found something else to fit it in. Maybe you found something else to fill its space. But you need a liberator today. Like, seriously, you need a liberator today. I don't want this to be one of those, like, wow, pastor's really preaching. You know, my wife says when I get, like, really excited and, you know, like I'm moving, she's like, there's a vein that pops out from, like, the top of your head. I don't know. Like, some of you guys have seen it because, you know, I want you to know that I am so pumped, so excited, so just, it's like such a privilege to be able to stand up here and tell you about the one who will liberate you from everything you have ever experienced, every difficulty, every challenge, every pain, everything that you've just wondered, why, what for, I just don't understand. He is the liberator. He is the liberator of your soul. Some of us, you know, we're scared of that. We just don't know. That, like, this story just seems a bit weird. It seems a bit strange. We're like, you know, like, I know you're talking about it, Pastor, and I know that it's a part of our Christmas tradition. I know that it's familiar. I understand that, but it just doesn't make sense. I just don't believe it. I don't know that I can believe it. You know what? Give it a try for a little while, please. I was talking to some youth in a youth ministry setting, I don't know, maybe a year ago or so, and we were talking about books and stuff like that, and they're like, I don't know if I can, you know, believe the Bible. You know, they were talking about how, you know, like, sometimes they read a whole book just to say that they hate the book. Like, you know, you can't make an assumption, you can't make a decision, you can't make a statement about a book until you've read that book. You know, the Bible tells us that those who seek him will find him. Not like, okay, I'll do whatever I have to get my friends off my back or my family off my back. No. In that scripture, it's telling you, like, to really search for him, to maybe create a space in your heart to say, maybe he is real. Maybe he does exist. Maybe there's something about this that I don't fully know. Maybe, just maybe. You know what? The liberator was born, and he has what you need to be liberated. And liberation for me has not been a one-time event. I feel liberated every day. And when I don't, I have to fight and claw and punch, not physically, but punch through things to find it. All right? I have to pursue with such vigor to be liberated. So I'm going to pray. And I want to ask you guys to search your hearts today. I want to ask you guys to be real for just a moment. I pray this morning, Jesus, that our hearts would be transformed by the truth that you, our liberator, was born on Christmas Day. That you would be the light that would pierce darkness. That in love our world would change. Our lives would change. Everything would change. We would have freedom and peace from our every sin. Lord, that those searching for a Savior, that they now have one. It's in your name we pray, Jesus. Amen.